Hi everyone, can I serve you hot puff today? I'm going to be showing you how to make puff. You see that very chewy, yummy, soft puff? Before we start, let me do some quick baking 101. First off, you see your baking soda, your yeast, and your baking powder? They are your rising agents. You do not want to mistake these guys. First is your baking powder. This guy is literally one of the most used things in your household. People use it for cleaning, people use it for a lot of things. But again, it's also a rising agent. When you put this in a flour, expect that flour to have some sort of rising agent in it. It's going to rise, right? Next is also your yeast. This guy, there is instant yeast and there's active yeast. Now for active yeast, you need to activate it just as the name sounds. And to activate it, you put it in warm water and some sugar, cover it up, and then allow it to stay for some minutes, and then it rises. However, for the instant yeast, you don't need to proof that yeast. Just add it to your flour and cover it up, and you are good to go. And then you have your baking powder. This guy is also a rising agent. If you put it in your flour, it's going to rise or double the size. So these are the things I wanted you to know, and there are ways to know if your baking powder is good or not. I have that video on my page. You can quickly check that out. Next is your measuring cups. Guys, you cannot say you are baking without knowing what measuring cups are on about. Like cooking that you can just cook with your heart, baking you need to have your measuring cups, and here is mine. You can get yours from any store that sells baking ingredients. And when they say 1 cup of flour, this is what 1 cup of flour looks like. You should be able to run your hand over the top without it pouring away. If the content is more than this, it is no longer 1 cup. Now let's make puff. First off, this is our flour. We're going to be using flour to make puff. Next is some salt, and also we have some sugar, we have some powdered milk. Notice the measuring cup I'm using for all of these ingredients. And then you have your ground nutmeg. Some people use cinnamon, is also fine. And here is our yeast. Either your instant yeast or your active yeast, both work for this recipe. Now I'm going to be using 2 cups of flour, so please take note of that measurement. And then I'm going to be using 1/3 of sugar and then 1/3 of milk. So my milk and sugar are the same quantity. Put in a tablespoon of salt and a tablespoon of nutmeg. Our yeast is going to be 1.5 tablespoons. So you saw me put 1 earlier and put the half later. You're going to mix all your dry ingredients together. Make sure you mix it well, because you don't want nutmeg on one side and then sugar on another side. And the last ingredient we're going to be using is warm water. One of the mistakes that people make when it comes to water is that they use water that is too hot. See, do not use hot water to bake. It's going to kill the yeast, especially if you're making something that has yeast in it. Guys, please do not use hot water. Use warm water. I'm going to list all the measurements again, aside the one I've mentioned in this video. Now you can see me mixing all of that together. I'm using my hand. I already washed it and it's clean. I'm adding a little bit more water, and again I'm going to show you all these measurements outside this video, right? So mix it all together. You can see how that is looking. Look out for the consistency, guys. It is not too watery and it's definitely not too thick. This is how I cut my puff, and this is how to also know that your batter is not too watery or too thick. You should be able to make that move without it dripping, right? Now I'm going to be using my cling film to cover this up, because you want to leave for at least 45 minutes to rise, and that's where our yeast is going to take place. Now please note that if you're using active yeast, don't directly pour it into the flour like I did here. What you're going to do is put that in a bowl with some warm water, add a little bit of sugar, cover that up and allow that to rise. Once it rises, you can then add it to the flour. Now we're going to set this aside. I love to keep mine in the oven, and after 45 minutes, this is what we have. Guys, open that cling film up and you're going to see that it should have doubled in size or even tripled in size. Please note, if you say that it did not double in size or triple in size, just abort mission, because it just means that this puff will not turn out well, or perhaps you got a yeast that was bad. So you can see this is how I'm going to be cutting it into the oil. Now with puff, you need a lot of oil. You cannot afford to use little oil because you need it to float. If you use little oil, guys, it's going to spoil the entire puff. I used my skewer to check if it's hot, and once you see bubbles on that skewer, you can begin to cut your puff in. Now Now, I showed you the hand movements earlier in this video, so you can go back to see how to do that. Some people will pour it into a piping bag and then begin to cut that piping bag little by little, or the flour, and you can also use that method. But here is another method by using your hand, and if you just follow the way I showed you earlier in this video, it is so easy. Flip the pop-off, and if you have a problem flipping it, just make sure you put enough pop-off to fill up that pan so it does not have space to be turning. Like, you can see me struggle with that. And guys, look at our first set of pop-off. It is ready. Look at the second set. Guys, this pop-off should serve about 6 to 7 people, and guys, it's ready. Your pop-off is ready. It is actually one of the easiest things to make. I understand that it's a consistency that is a problem, or maybe the rising agent. That's why I had to do some sort of introduction to you guys earlier. So I want you to try this out, guys. I especially want to see you show me your pop-off. This is how to see that it is ready. You can see it is well made. Also know that when it comes to the oil used in frying your pop-off, it should not be too hot or too cold. If it's too hot, guys, that pop-off is going to get brown and it soon gets done inside. If it's not hot enough, you're going to have your pop-off get soggy. It's going to soak up oil, and you don't want that. So what do? Put that skewer in the oil like I showed you earlier. When you see a moderate amount of bubbles, it means that your oil is already hot. When it's too hot and you see so many bubbles, it means that that oil is getting too hot, and you should just reduce the heat and allow it to cool down a bit. But if you see no bubbles at all, please do not even start to fry that pop-off. Your pop-off is going to soak oil and it's going to get soggy. Now, this is it. This is how to make your pop-off. I'm open to all your questions in the comments. Okay, bye.